You guys can hear me, right? My audio is coming clear. Is there any background noise that is seeping in? Okay, excellent. So today we're going to focus on DevOps chapter, right? We are seeing a lot of buzzword in the industry. What is DevOps? What is DevOps, right? So can someone tell me what is exactly DevOps? What DevOps does? What problem are we trying to address? Guys, is DevOps new to you? Yes, we need DevOps. Okay, Saddam is development and operations both handle DevOps guys. Can you literally explain us in layman term, right? That's a terminology that is available on the internet, right? Can you explain someone like layman like me, right? I do not know what is DevOps. So how would you explain that? How would you articulate this, Mahesh?
In short, actually, the developer who develops their code, and then they know that what exactly it has to be their environment, and then they will push the code to the repository, and then from there the operation guys pull the code. But most of the time the developer doesn't tell exactly what the environment they are created, or this date change might be in the development, and there might be always the blame game is going to be start. So there is a coordination. Then the new concept has been come into the picture. So there will be the coordination has to be happen between the development team and the operation team, and then coordinately they will push their code into the operation and quality and test. That much I know about that.
Okay, so you're right. You're absolutely correct. But the information is not enough. Okay, so he's already put it together. Most of the aspects what DevOps try to resolve, but we need to start with the culture. We need to start this with the notion here, right? So how do you start this with? So let me show an image here. Right, something. Okay, so you see this, right? This is the car assembly line. At the beginning of the assembly line, the car will start as an empty hollow shell. By the end of the assembly line, the car is fully built, right? Now, what is this? Right, this is called process or a culture. So what is DevOps? DevOps is a process or a culture which tells us that how we can integrate operational and development team to work together, right? So let me put this here. This is my development and this is my operations. So the process or a culture tells us that picking up best of operations, picking up best of development, merging it together and calling it a DevOps process or a DevOps culture, right? So this is a very high level. Now let's try to bring this conversation to a low level here. So under low level, you have to think this process as an assembly line, a car assembly line, right? At the beginning of the assembly line, you will have tooling stages. Right, this is the beginning of the assembly line where you identify tools, right? And then at the second stage of your assembly line, you will identify source, right? Source. And third stage of your assembly line is build. And this is not explicit to AWS. This is the standard process which is followed across all the IT industry, explicitly IT industry, right? And then in your operational stage, you again have three stages here. You have three assembly lines that you need to add, right? After build and test, you deploy. You deploy. After you deploy, you need to see whether okay the deployment is done correctly or not. You monitor. After you monitor, you track or report. right? So this is how an assembly line would look like, and this is what your process or culture would look like, where you have 3 stages in your development and you have 3 stages in your operation. You guys need to remember this is an interview question, right? So this is the beginning of the assembly line, right? Where you write. This is where you write, this is where you store, just to simplify so that you can understand what I'm talking about, right? So to write a software, right, if you want to write an article or a letter, right, you will use Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, right? If you're working with calculation, you will use Excel, right? But when you're writing a software, right, when you're writing a code, you will not write your code on Microsoft Word or Excel, right? These are all documentation tools that you have. You need to focus on development tool, right? So we have Visual Studio. So Visual Studio is a writing tool that you can use, right? You have PyCharm, Eclipse, Sublime. My favorite, though I'm not a great programmer, but my favorite is Notepad++. Are you with me? So do you recall any other writing tools, any other development tools? What else? Give me a couple of more tools that we can use to write software code. Okay, I don't remember of any tools. No issues. So these are some of the very popular and common tools that we use to write our software code. And most of these tools are almost all tools are available for free today that you can download. And start exploring, right? So this is the tools that you will use. This is the first stage in your assembly line. Now the second stage is you want to store it, right? Like you have Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive. There are different storage mechanisms and storage services that exist on the internet today. Those storages are great to store your pictures, documentations, files, and other things. But if you want to store code and you want to track history on changes of those codes, you want to maintain that tree, then again, for your code storage, there's a special storage repositories that you might want to consider, right? The most popular one, and recently Microsoft bought it, GitHub. Right, this was the services that Microsoft paid 7+2 plus some XYZ billion dollars to buy this storage repository, right? Though they had OneDrive, great for storing pictures, documents, and other thing, they really did not have a storage services where they could store code. So therefore, they acquired GitHub, right? You have Bitbucket. Bitbucket is another popular service, right? SVN, CVN, Team Foundation service. There are a lot of version controls and source repository storages that exist on the internet that you might take advantage out of to store your data. So do you have anything else? Okay, Mahesh has already captured 2 Subversion in GitHub. So this is Subversion. SVN is short form for subversioning, right? So I've captured this here. Now build. Right, so once you have written the code, once you've stored the code, you would like to build and test the code, how the code is functioning, right? Now to do this, right, Jenkins, yes. Mercury, very good. Gokul Krishna, pre-focus for storage, yes. Maven, very good. Maven, nice. Saddam, right, correct. Jenkins you have, right? Maven, and what else? Okay, and right, couple of other tools, and Bamboo, Solano, right? And there are half a dozen different build tools that exist on the internet, right? Let's continue forward. So once you test or once you build a package, you would like to deploy it because when you say, right, DevOps, right, development is continuous integration, right? The yellow stage is CI. The yellow stage is CI and the orange stage is CD, continuous deployment, right? So this is the process where it says you have continuously integrated all three tools. Now you want to continuously deploy, monitor, and report. So therefore, continuous integration and continuous deployment, CI, CD, right? So under CD, you would like to deploy this. Where can we deploy this code? Yeah, Hudson. Right? You can deploy this on Docker. Right? You can deploy this on Docker. You can put this on Linux. You can put this on Windows. And you can do it on Docker, Linux, Windows. What else? Tomcat can be a part of Linux here, right? Tomcat can be a part of a Linux. It's a middleware that you can use. Right, I will call it as full stack. Right, when I say full stack, I'm representing Tomcat, JBoss, Apache, IIS, full stack, right? And you would like to stitch this also. Therefore, you would need salt. Excuse me. You need Ansible, Puppet, Chef, any configuration management, right? Because you would like to automate this also. Once the build and test happens, a deployment, you would like to automate this. Hence, no OpenStack here. OpenStack is not considered here, right? But instead of OpenStack, we can use one of the OpenStack service called Nova, right? So Nova is a service where you, in OpenStack, Nova is a service where you build virtual machines such as Windows or Linux. Horizon is a dashboard, right? Keystone is an identity and access management. You have Cinder, Celometer, a couple of other components. But explicitly in OpenStack, we will use Nova here. I think I've become blind. Nova. Are you with me, Mahesh? Urban Code, I'm not sure, not heard of it. Urban Code. I think you're Googling and you're getting it, right? Give me monitoring here. Right, give me monitoring, application monitoring. This has to be different than your service delivery class, right? We're not talking about infrastructure monitoring, the application monitoring app Dynamics, Dynatrace, App Dynamics, Nagios for infrastructure, New Relic, the Dynatrace I've already captured it. Google, right? Dynatrace is New Relic. Keep going. Give me application monitoring, not the infrastructure monitoring. Infrastructure monitoring, we discussed this in service delivery, right? And your tracking and reporting, Jira, right? We can use Jira, Bugzilla, Site 24/7. Where are you getting these names, man? SITE 24/7. Website monitoring, monitor availability and end user experience made simple, monitor DevOps and IT operations. Okay, let's give it for 27, site 24/7. Okay, what else? Sorry, this comes here. What else? Grafana for monitoring. Montes, yes. Montes. GRAF, Rafina. This is monitoring or this is tracking? Give me for tracking also. Give me a couple of tools for tracking. Tracking, bug reporting. Give me some tools. Sonar. Okay, that's it, right? So this is how our assembly line is now. Now our assembly line is ready. Now there are too many tools in assembly line. We cannot use all, right? So now let's call this DevOps. DevOps version 1.0. Let's call this DevOps version 1.0, right? So in this 1.0, what will happen is, right, we have to play a small game to understand what we are trying to do here, right? Let's play a game. Free versus paid, right? So what happens is, all these tools that are available is free. Jenkins is free, right? All these tools are free. GitHub is free. Docker is free. Linux is free. Salt, Ansible, Chef is free, right? I'm pretty sure that there are monitoring tools that exist that is also free, such as Nagios and Zabbix, that can be configured to do application monitoring with some extensions and plugin, right? You can also use tracking systems such as Bugzilla, right? All this is free, but is it actually free? Right now, what will happen is, I'll go to who is there today, Divi. I go to Divi and Saddam and say, hey bro, come here. You're my friends, come here. And I'll take them out for chai break, sutta break, dinner, lunch, right? And then I will tell them, hey, you know what? There's a nice DevOps project. Would you be interested to work? And you guys will say yes, right? And I will say, you know what? All these tools are free. You're working on open source technology. Can you also work for free? Right? So Saddam will say, and Divi will say, hey dude, hold on for a second. You mean to say you want us to work for you for free without a salary? No. Right? Now the question here is, though the tools are open source and free, people are not ready to work for free. So is the tool is actually free? The answer is no. Right? So there is a people cost. People cost, right? You might have more than one person in your team, 5 people team, 10 people team, from various aspects. I'm still talking about infrastructure. I'm still not talking about development. We'll reach to a development right now. We're talking about DevOps 2.1 infra problems, infra challenges. So these are the infra challenges that we're discussing, right? Free versus paid. Though you're using open source and all free software, it is actually not free because there's a people cost associated with that, right? Point number one. Now point number two is, in order to run all these tools, there's an additional cost. You need laptop here, you need laptop or desktop here in case if you want to use any of these tools. You need to have a VM. This also you need a VM. This also you need a VM, and in this case this can be more than one VM. So this is development overhead, right? Again, we are talking about infrastructure cost, right? You need a cost for the hardware or virtual machines, right? I will put here infra cost. Point number 2. So that means though the software that you have, right, you have to run this free software somewhere. Wherever that you run, you have to pay for VMs. Whether you take a partner data center or you build a data center for yourself, you still have to buy hardware, software, network switches, other aspect of your data center, and you have to build your DC. And then you have to run these applications on top of it. So there is an infrastructure cost. Now the third thing is, right, go to market. Right now there's 6 assembly lines that we have. There are 6 stages that we have, right? You would say, hey Sohail, you know what, my team is proficient in Eclipse, we will pick up Eclipse here, right? And then say we will do GitHub here, right? Probably we'll do Jenkins here, or let's say we'll do Bamboo, just for an argument's sake, right? And then you will say you will deploy this on Linux, right? This will be monitored through AppDynamics, right? And this will be reported in the Bugzilla. Just an argument. So what you're basically doing is, though there are a lot of tools that are possibly available to solve one or more problem within your assembly line, you don't have to use them all. If you have any one tool in the list, any one tool in one of this list is all it matters to you to put your infrastructure together. Now you need to automate this. You need a Ansible or some guy. Now what will happen is, in your traditional data center, at least in my experience that I've been working with some of the very large development projects right now, right? Not even one architect was able to stitch all the 6 stages together. Right? All the stages cannot be stitched together or have not been able to automate. When I spoke to him and I asked him, right, he says, sir, I go on the internet, whatever scripts I find, I bring it in, I try to put the script to execute. Whichever script works, those parts are automated. Whichever we could not figure that out, we still do that work manually. I tell him, why don't you write it? He doesn't know how to write, but he's working in DevOps. Are you with me? Right? People say, I know Jenkins. People say, I know Linux. People I know. But when it comes time to stitch all these pieces together, I've never seen a DevOps model where they were able to achieve 100% automation. It is always a part automation, and majority of the work you still do manually. Right? So that means go to market or the quality of the product is questioned. Quality of work. Not sure what kind of a quality of work that you have. I go to market, I hire a DevOps engineer. He will say, sir, I will change the world. I will take it to moon. I know how to make a rocket. Right? That is what DevOps engineers will say. But when you actually hire them, most of the time they spend on the internet finding scripts and fine tuning and modifying, doing all that circus. Right? And then quality of the work is guaranteed. You don't know whether that guy will come and able to put this together. Right? Go to market. So what is go to market? Right? The more process you automate, the more quicker the development cycle will happen. In the automation, if you have various manual stages, that much more delay of your product will happen. The same product can be developed and released in few weeks, or the same products can be developed and released in few months. So go to market is unknown. Right? So let's understand the use case here. You have a development team, you have an operational team. Right? So let's say Divi is a developer and Saddam is from an operational background. And these two guys are best friends. They hang out together, they smoke, they have chai, they're best friends. Right? And they're working in the development and operations, so-called DevOps process. Right? But they're having 2 different roles. So what is happening is, right, Divi is a developer, he will write hello world code. And what he does is, he will store this code here. I'm talking about a semi-manual or semi-automatic use case here. So he will use an Eclipse, he will write hello world code here, right? And exactly by 1:15, 1:10, he will see Saddam is going for lunch. So this guy will also join him, but before he could join him, he'll drop a mail to Saddam and say, hey, can you build and test this code for me? Can you deploy this code for me? And can you monitor this, and can you come back and update me whether the code was passed or failed? This is what Divi is expecting Saddam to do, right? Before going to lunch. So he will send an email. Saddam is not sure whether he has to do some work or not. He will left for a lunch. Right? Divi and Saddam are sitting in cafeteria having nice lunch, rolls, whatever they want. And then when they both return back from the break at 2 o'clock, right? Divi does not have a work. Divi is chilling and relaxing because he's extending his break. But when Saddam comes back, as soon as he logs in, he will see, okay, I have to pick up this code, I have to build, I have to deploy, monitor how the code is doing, find the problems, and go back and report the issue. So who is boss here? Divi is a boss. He's trying to show off, right? And then by that time, Saddam updates the code, comes back and update him. It'll take 1 hour. So let's say he came back at 3 o'clock. That means for Divi, he took 2 hours of break. Saddam only got 1 hour of break. Are we clear so far with this story? Yes, no, maybe. Who left the class? Saddam has left the class. Can someone, Mahesh, message him and ask him to come back? Right? Now let's see, let's make Saddam boss here. Where did he go? Okay, Saddam is back. Right? Now what Saddam will do is, Saddam is smart. Right? So Saddam is working on some project and Divi will try to do the exact same thing. So Divi will send a message at exactly 5:30 or 5:45. He will dump the case on Saddam's head and this guy will run away home. So poor operational guy has to sit 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, he should finish Divi's work and he has to send him an email so that next day morning when Divi comes to office by 9 o'clock or 9:30, right, he exactly knows the outcome of the code that he published last evening so that he can start working on that. But here there is a caveat. What Saddam will do is, instead of taking action, Saddam will say, oh boss, I am also boss here. And that guy will say, okay, I'm not feeling well, I'll go home. So Saddam is left without attending Divi's ticket. Now next day morning, Divi is coming and he's checking, there is no results available. He does not know what to do. His code is stored on the GitHub. Nobody's there to do build and test. Nobody's there to deploy it. Nobody's there to monitor and report it. Now Divi's manager is bombarding him. He's asking what happened. Give me update. Give me update. And the thing what he thought he's taking advantage out of has backfired Divi. Because now Saddam is refused to do his work, or he's delaying the work purposefully, which is causing the development work delay. So that means in the development team also, they want to be a boss. In operational team also, they will also show who is the boss there, right? But at the end of the day, the impact is organization's impact, because there's no sync between these two guys, right? There's a conflict between these two guys. Everybody wants to be a superior across each other. Nobody wants to follow the process. And there's a huge impact on the company because the work is delayed for the organization, right? So to solve this problem, right, and to solve the people cost, such as infrastructure guys cost, to solve the infrastructure cost itself, to solve the quality of the work, and to solve the go to market so that you can quickly go to market in a few weeks instead of few months, right, a birth of DevOps 2.0 happened, right? This is version 2.2, and this is not exclusive to AWS. Azure also has it, Google also has it. Pretty much every cloud provider has DevOps 2.0. So what is DevOps 2.0 and what they're exactly doing to solve this problem, right? Some of these problems you understood, right? What is happening in DevOps 1.0? Hey, what man, Mahesh? Right, now let's understand how a DevOps 2.0 problem will solve and why people are looking for cloud plus DevOps experience. Everywhere that you see, they expect you to know cloud plus DevOps, and it's a huge demand in the market, right? Because indirectly they're asking you to know DevOps 2.0. So under DevOps 2.0 initiatives, right, we have our own tools. We have AWS DevOps tools, right? So here we will be using Cloud9. We will be using Cloud9. Cloud9 is a maternity hospital in India. This is only for Indian users that I'm talking. I'm not talking for a non-Indian users. If you're searching any related documents or anything on a Google in India, it might lead you to maternity website, right? Because there's a chain of maternity hospitals in India called Cloud9. Only Indian users has to explicitly type AWS Cloud9 to get relevant results. Right, so if you're doing a research or if you want to understand something, make sure you type AWS Cloud9 so that you get right documentations and right videos, right? But I will do a detailed training on Cloud9 and I will explain you, right? So in our tooling stage, we have Cloud9, and then in our source stage, we have Code Commit. And in our build stage, we have code build, then code deploy. We have Elastic Container Service, which is again known as Docker. We have Beanstack, CloudFormation, OpsWork. So some of these tools are available for us to work with, right? After that, so we don't have application monitoring tool here, right? We have CloudWatch, which does infrastructure monitoring. But there's no application monitoring that we have. Like in our service delivery lecture, we did not have a ticketing tool, right? So we use Zendesk and Freshdesk. We use a third-party ticketing tool. We integrated with our services, and that is where we used it, right? So here also we have to use some third-party monitoring tool to do this. And for application tracking also, we don't have it, right? We may have to use Jira here or any other tool, right? So this is our assembly line in DevOps 2.0, right? So this, instead of doing the development on the laptop, you actually provision a VM for it. This is serverless. This is also serverless. Lambda. So this can be both serverless and VM. Again, this can be serverless and VM if you're bringing in a monitoring tool, right? This can be serverless or VM again, right? Now, let's understand infrastructure challenge here. Right, let's understand infrastructure challenge also here. So the infrastructure challenge, right? There is zero people cost. So when I say zero people cost, what I mean is you don't need infrastructure guys on AWS, right? You don't need an infrastructure guy to build on AWS. Low infra cost. You still pay for a cost, but here you pay as you go model, and most of the services are serverless. So that means only if you use 5 GB, only pay for a 5 GB, right? For example, in storage here, if you're using GitHub, you use it, you don't use it, you pay for a VM cost that is running for the entire month. Here you pay by the storage. If you have only 500 MB, you only pay for 500 MB. You don't pay for a whole server. In case of build and test, you have Jenkins, right? I do not know whether you will release 1 build a day or 10 builds a day, or you don't release a build in 1 week, but you're still running a Jenkins VM there. You pay cost for the entire month. Here, if you're taking 5 minutes to build, you'll only pay for 5 minutes time duration. You don't pay for the whole month here. So it's an extremely low infrastructure cost that you will save. You're getting my point? So there's a low infrastructure cost that you have. Quality of the work. So the quality of the work is excellent. Why excellent? Because here you have to manually stitch various tools that exist. But here Amazon engineers have already integrated all these tools out of the box. That means without even writing a single line of automation, you get a service that are one end to another end fully integrated. So that means immediately you can start from day one. Right after this training, you can start writing codes and everything else is automated. All the stages are stitched together, right? But in your traditional DevOps 1.0, you have to do 100% manual things to put all this together, right? So this is excellent. Go to market. This is now because you don't have infrastructure team in your DevOps in AWS. For the first time, you can run the entire DevOps without operational guys. In your traditional DevOps, you need operational guys plus development guys. In your AWS DevOps world, you only need developers, you don't need operations. You could argue, hey, who will create a VM for them, right? Developers will do it themselves because it is very easy now. Who's going to do build, test, and deploy? Don't have to do it. They have automated in such a way that it will automatically pick up the code. It will automatically do build and test. It will automatically deploy it. It will automatically monitor, report, pass or fail. It does everything end to end. We don't need operational guys. So that means Devi, when he releases a code at 1 o'clock, there is no Saddam to address it. Right? Machine will pick it up, automatically build, test, deploy. Right? Before he completes his lunch. Right? Even before he leaves his desk to cafeteria, the results are ready and he'll get an email. Hey, we have completed your test. We have deployed it. We have monitored it. Here you go. This is your result. Right? From the time he leaves his desk and goes to a cafeteria, a test is already completed. In a traditional method, it will take up to 1 hour based on the severity. Sometimes it takes up to 4 hours based on the complexity of the code. But machine is here, so machine does not need a break. You release a code, you sip a cup of coffee, your results are ready. So this is the power of DevOps 2.0. It is fully automated, extremely low infrastructure cost. Third thing is it is excellent quality of the work, right, out of the box. Fourth thing is go to market is you can develop codes and you can release sprints every day because the results are so quick, right? So that means instead of releasing 2 codes a day that typically Divi does, now he can release 20 codes, right? Every half an hour he can release and system will immediately give him an update what is happening with it. Isn't that amazing, boys? Yes, 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 no, maybe. A Lightsail is not a part of DevOps here. Okay, since the thought process is cleared, right? So let's start with basics and let's do a couple of labs here, right? But before we get in there, let me explain you Cloud9. This is very important. So who won, guys? Did free win? Did paid win? Who won the game? Is paid is better or is free is better? Which one is better according to you? Which one is better? Paid is better or free is better? Obviously paid is better, right? Right? Not everything is free is great, right? We have to focus on DevOps 2.0, and if you become a DevOps 2.0 engineer, you can replace 10 people's job. We are moving into that world. Okay, so let's dive in now. So let's understand Cloud9. What is Cloud9, right? We have lot of tools available here. We have Visual Studio, PyCharm, Eclipse, Sublime, Node++, my favorite, right? Which you can install it on your local laptop, You can do your code writing, right? Why do you have to build a VM and why do you have to run Cloud9 on top of it? Let's understand that use case first. Now in my team, what happens, there are some notorious guys. They will say, sir, give me work from home, sir. I'll ask him what happened. Sir, my child is not keeping well, sir. You get my point, right? So you cannot say no to them because their child is priority, their wife is priority. So they always ask for work from home so that they can take care of their loved ones and they can do their work. But when they say work from home, it is actually not work from home. It is work for home. Right? They work for home, they don't work from home. So basically what I'm trying to articulate is people who take work from home they will never do job. They'll be busy with their house stuff. Just to avoid a leave, they will take it because they know that they can come back and redo this after 2 days, 3 days. Right? It is an impact for my business. I cannot afford to do this. Every time I call, they'll say, sir, I'm in a bakery buying milk and bread. I'll go home and I'll update you. I'll go home and I'll update you. That will never happen. Right? So sometimes they will say, sir, I've reached home, sir, but unfortunately internet is not working, sir. Give me 1 hour, internet will come, I'll send you. You're getting my point, right? So there are a lot of reasons that I have captured in the Excel sheet over a period of last 4 years that I'm working with a development team. Every reason I capture and I tell them that, hey, this time you give me a new reason. If I already find a reason in an Excel sheet, I'm not going to help you out. Getting my point, right? Doesn't happen that way. Second use case here is, right, if you see in the world, right, we have over 7.2 billion population, human, right? We are the majority mankind that we exist here. Overall population is 7.2, but according to Microsoft data, over 1 billion. In 7.2 billion, over 1 billion people use PC, laptops, desktops. But out of those 1 billion people, my dad is also using laptop, but he doesn't know how to write a code. Right, most of our family members, right, they use laptops but they don't know how to write a code. They're using it to send emails, they're using it to pay bills, buy stuff online. They don't know how to write code. So out of this 1 billion people who are using desktops or laptops, only 20%, only 200 million users are developers and 800 million are either infrastructure guys or either computer casual users. That means there's a very small portion of the world's population who writes code using one of this tool on their laptop or on their desktop. Do you agree with me so far? Okay, you do. Great, right? But if you see a smartphone user base, right? Today people have two smartphones. I don't know, in my office there are people that are carrying 2 smartphones and 4 SIM cards. I don't know why. I asked them, why boss you have two phones? Are you a VIP or what? Right? In 7.2 billion population that we have, over 4 billion people already are connected to smartphones and internet. Though they have expensive internet or affordable internet over a Wi-Fi, but everyone has a smartphone today. Over 60-65% of the world population who stays in metros and cities have smartphone, and most of them have two smartphones and 4 SIM cards. In my case, I have 2 SIM cards, right? One is an UAE number, one is an Indian number, but I have one phone, right? So typically it's a human use case, right? So what Amazon is thinking is, out of these many people that we have who's using smartphone, right, we should target them instead of targeting someone who has laptop and desktop with our Cloud9 tool. Why this is important, right? So for me, when I was like a small kid, like 16-17 years old, right, my dad bought and gave me a desktop computer. It was a big screen, 14-inch screen. There was a tower on the left hand side. There was a keyboard, mouse, Windows 98 was there. A big PC was there in my house. That is what I got it when I was 17-18. A desktop computer. But my father did cheating to my sister, right? When my sister became 17-18, she got a laptop, right? I got a desktop. I always wanted a laptop. He didn't get me one. But when my sister turned 17-18, she got a laptop. You getting my point, right? Now today, your kids, your nephews, your relatives, anybody, if you see 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old kid, for them the first digital device is neither a desktop or a laptop but a smartphone, right? Though they don't own their smartphone, they get access to their mother's or father's smartphone. The moment they get connected to their mother or father's smartphone, they get connected to the world by their internet. They explore their world through that, right? At the age of 9, 10 that we're looking at. And by the time they become 14, 15, 16, the first preferred digital device for them is their phone. They want to buy a phone, they don't want laptop or desktop. So there are a lot of kids that are going to college today wants smartphone, right, versus laptop or desktop. Are you with me so far? So Amazon understands that the majority of the modern workforce in the new generation that is coming in will be mobile or tablet, and they will shy away from desktops or laptop computers that we have, right? And this most of the mobile devices that we have are affordable devices like $100, $150, 10,000, 15,000, right? There are very few people who will buy iPhones, or very few people will spend like Galaxy phones or expensive phones. But majority of them are low to medium budget phones they will use. Now Amazon understands that they cannot develop a developing software for all the smartphones in the world. There are hundreds of different brands and hundreds of different hardware specifications. There are hundreds of different Android, iOS, and Windows versions that are there. It's a nightmare for a company like Amazon to develop a native phone app for code development for every device that exists in the world today. So they understand this, right? So instead, what they have done is, instead of developing software for every possible device that exists, they have developed a software which actually runs on top of a VM. So that means if you have a very basic phone, and if you could open a browser and access Facebook, you can access Cloud9 and you can write codes. It is that simple, right? If you have an ultra basic phone with an internet, and if you can open a browser and access facebook.com, gmail.com, or flipkart.com, if you're able to browse, then Cloud9, you can also open that in the browser and you can start writing your codes. So the modern workforce that are coming online now through a mobile phone, for them there's an opportunity that without having an expensive laptop or a desktop, without able to download complex or a heavy software, right, build packages, compiling, and other circles they have to do, they just have to open a browser, access Cloud9, start writing hello world code, and say save. The code is saved into a VM on the cloud. That VM will do building, compiling, right, all that magic it will do, and it'll do everything on the cloud. All you need to have is a basic ultra basic phone, a browser, and access to the internet. So that is what Cloud9 does. It's a browser base to solve this problem, to connect to all the mobile world, to enable all the students to start writing codes at a very early age, right? Instead of waiting on bus stop, you open your phone, start writing code. Waiting in a metro, you open your phone and start writing code, right? A lot of time happens that in the middle of the night, you get up, you take out your phone, you open WhatsApp, you'll see any messages you have. You don't have any messages, you'll close your WhatsApp and you throw your phone and you sleep. Happened a lot of time happened that in middle of the night you get up, you take out your phone, you see what messages you have got, then you close it and you sleep. It's a very common practice that we have, right? In the middle of the night, if you have an idea, will you open your laptop and sit and start writing code? I bet you no. But if it is mobile first development, then in the middle of the night, if you have an idea, you can pick up your phone, open this, write hey hello world, and then save it and throw the phone and sleep. You're getting my point? So psychological, we understand that the behavior of the consumer is changing, the way you work is also changing, right? So Amazon is relevant in that space. You agree with me? Do you think this is making sense? Very good if it is making sense, right? Now Code Commit is a clone of GitHub. They have taken a GitHub, right? The GitHub that is available on the internet, they've taken it up, they have removed the skin, and they have put the Code Commit skin here, right? How sure am I? Why am I this confident? All the commands that you use in GitHub, 100% compatible. All the commands will work here. All GitHub commands only work here. So it's a clone of GitHub, right? Code deploy, it's a clone of all these three, right? So you can say under the code deploy, you have Maven package, you have Ant, you have other builds capability. Again, it's a clone of that, Jenkins. You don't have to use Jenkins here, right? Because Amazon can build the entire assembly and integrate this together, right? That is the magic that we're looking at. So you don't have to use Jenkins. What you do in Jenkins, what you can do in Maven, what you can do it in Ant, can be done using code build. Simple, a clean replacement here. There are a couple of other tools. We have container service. We discussed container here, still available, right? Beanstack is a development environment. Code deploys for production. CloudFormation for automation, such as code as an infrastructure. Infrastructure as a code. Ops work is built on Puppet and Chef that we will discuss. Lambda is again there, serverless. CloudWatch we have, Jira we have. So some of these areas is what we will be discussing in today's lecture. So what I will do, since it's a very first DevOps class that we have, right, I'll try to keep things a little basic so that we can understand. The first thing is when you move into AWS, right, the first thing you do is code migration. You have code somewhere outside AWS. You want to bring that code inside AWS. That's the very first activity that you do, right? So I'm going to start from there. Right, when you start your AWS journey as a DevOps, right, the first challenge that you have is what we will cover in this training, so that going forward, every subject that we discuss in the entire assembly line, it will be a smooth sailing for you. So what you need to do is, in order to keep up with the lecture, right, you have to create a GitHub account. Right, go to github.com and you have to create a free account here. I think I have logged in already, that is why, but you will have an option of creating an account. It is as simple as creating a Facebook or a Twitter. Right, so create an account and have an account ready. Once you have your account, the next thing what you need to do is, right, you have to visit my GitHub account. Why this is important, I'll tell you that in a moment here. Let me share my GitHub account link with you. I've given you the link, kindly bookmark this. So the first thing is you have to visit my GitHub account and you will see a button called follow here. You have to click on follow. Why? Every time I update some code here, you guys will get a notification. As soon as you get a notification that I have done any changes to the code or I have updated any code, you guys can copy it or you guys can download it. It is free. Right, so once you visit my site here, you have to go to repository, and if you come to my repository, if you see here, there are various projects that I'm parallelly working on. Some of the projects that I'm doing for training, some projects I'm working for my personal project, right, as an entrepreneur, right, some I am part of somebody else's project where I am contributing. Are you getting my point? Hence, it is important that you click on follow, because if you follow me, you get an update. So in today's lecture, we'll be working with a very simple project called Sample PHP Works. So when you click on Sample PHP Work here, release only subscription, you can now limit a repository notification executed to release. Got it. On the right hand side, you have an option called fork. Do you see this fork? So what does fork means? Fork means you're copying the files from my repository to your repository. That is what it's called, fork. Right, so you can do this because I'm in my own profile. It is not visible. Right, let me go to right, AWS's GitHub repository here, and let me pull up an AWS SDK PHP here, and if you see, there's a fork option. For me, if I click on fork here, that means the entire AWS SDK PHP project will be forked into my account. That means I'm making a copy of this to my account. Are you with me? So that is what fork means. So I want you to fork it and copy this code, right? This is the step number 1. Right, so what you do is you create a GitHub account. Step number 2 is you come to my GitHub account and copy the code, and step number 3 is we will create one of the deployment environment here. Right, so I will show you all the assembly lines with various examples that you will do, and I will try to achieve maximum permutations and combinations, so that in the assembly line you can use the entire cycle if you want, or you can also pick and choose stages, 1 or 2 or multiple stages, to build your own assembly line. Right, for example, if you have an assembly line in the car workshop, it is not the car manufacturing plant, but it is car servicing and repairing plant. If you're working in car repair and service plant, right, you don't need body paint shop, or maybe you don't need engine manufacturing assembly line, or you might don't need a tinkering shop, something, or you might need tinkering and painting and washing, but you don't need engine manufacturing, oil servicing. So that means you can pick and choose, and you can make your own assembly line based on the project that you're working in. right? Or you can use all 6 stages and you can create a factory. It is up to you. So from GitHub, I will be demonstrating Beanstack here as a development project that I will demonstrate to you, right? So I'll go back to my AWS Management Services, and under DevOps category, excuse me, you have Elastic Beanstalk right here. You see this Elastic Beanstalk? So which region I am in right now? Mumbai. Okay, Mumbai is fine. I'll go to Elastic Beanstalk. Now what basically says is, Elastic Beanstalk, you can deploy, monitor, and scale an application quickly and easily. Let us do the heavy lifting for you. That means you should think Beanstalk as a skin over an EC2 instance. Right, Beanstalk is a skin over an EC2 instance. In your EC2 instance, you have to go through 7 screens. I have showed you in your first class, right? Picking an operating system, selecting micro, medium, small size, associating network and other things. 4th is able to give storage. 5th is tag the instance. 6th is you select a security group. 7th is you review it and you associate a key and you launch. All the stages you have to do, a typical infrastructure guy would do. But in case of a developer's time is very precious. He cannot sit and burn his code writing time on building an infrastructure. Building an infrastructure should be a breeze. So that most of his work is dedicated towards writing code and things can happen in the background. To solve this problem, you have Beanstalk. So instead of going through 7 stages, you only have 1 stage. You tell what you want and then you forget it. There's no need of guesswork. You don't need of selecting or picking, choosing anything. Beanstalk will give you exactly what you have in your mind. So let's put this in action here. I'm going to click on get started. Right. I'm going to say first project. Right. And then it is asking what deployment environment are you expecting? Right, since the code that I have in my GitHub repository is PHP, I will be selecting PHP here, and that's it. Right, I will say sample for now, and I'm not doing anything else. I'll click on create application. So now what this will do is it exactly knows that I need a PHP environment. And then what it does is it does everything by itself. It'll go and pick up a Linux machine. It'll pick up a PHP environment. It'll create a security group. It'll open all the necessary ports. It'll associate an IP address. It'll only give storage. It'll only select network. Everything it will do right now. If you see on my screen, it is also creating an S3 bucket where it is integrating with the services automatically. So that means it is creating a role also. Right, so that an EC2 instance can talk to S3 and push logs and other thing, and it will also create a bucket for you in S3 so that any work that you're related to this instance will store in S3 bucket. All that is happening automatically. I am doing nothing here. So as a developer, I can run this and I can go back and continue writing my code. Once this is ready in about a minute or two, I can come back and I can revisit this here. But since we're doing a training, I will pause on the screen and let's see what is happening here. You guys are still with me? Nice. Where did Zorul go again? Okay, Zorul is here. Where is Saddam? Okay. So give me a few more minutes and this should be ready by then. So instance is launching right now. Almost there, ready, right? And the best part is, if you have noticed here, it has also created a Route 53 entry for you. That means you don't have to manually go and add the IP address or create a record here. You simply click here and an output of that particular instance will show up here, right? It's a fully qualified domain name that you have. Since it's typically used for development, URL does not matter, because you can treat this as a UAT or a staging server. And if you see, congratulations, your services are running, right? Let's take a peek into an EC2 here. So under EC2, if I see one elastic IP I have, and if you see one running instance I have, and there you go, right? First project is what the name that I gave, it has created it. It has also created a security group for me. It has associated a elastic IP also. Pretty neat, isn't it? Right? So some students did tell me in my previous batch that, instead of learning EC2, why don't we keep doing this? Right? EC2 will give you more control, more granularity, right? And if you want to build production, you will typically prefer EC2 versus Beanstack. So Beanstack is only for development and staging. It's basically like a playground. The name itself suggests Beanstack. So that means you stack beans on top of each other and you break. You pick up beans again, you stack on top of each other like a Lego. You have seen small kids that they use Legos, they try to build a house and they break. Something like that. It's a playground for developers. Now, you're not satisfied with what you have. You want to further customize it or modify it. Simple. You can go back to configuration here, right? You have various aspects that you can configure, right? For example, if you want to configure software, you can click on modify here. So if you say enable log rotation, it will take logs of entire system and put it to S3. You can also change the middleware heap space here. For example, if you're using Tomcat or PHP Apache or any other middleware, you can change the middleware heap space here. I wish Saddam would have been here. He could have understood this. Where did he go? This guy is very difficult to get hold of. Okay. Right? So all the granularity, you don't have to log into Linux machine to do all this. Typically, an operational guy would log in and who will tailor this based on the developer's requirement. Now, developer is no longer in mercy of the infrastructure guy. A developer just has to come and change the parameter of his middleware and click on apply and save, and these changes are applied in the Linux machine. He doesn't have to log into Linux also. So likewise, if you want to modify, you can modify and change the instances that you want. Right? You can add extend storages, you can change security groups from here only, right? A single pane of glass, right? For example, you want load balancing and auto scaling capacity you want to increase. If you're deploying a use case on multiple instances, you can select load balancer here, right? Minimum and maximum 1 or 4, or you can say 8 also here. If you're testing codes on scale excuse me, scale out, and how does my code will scale out, right? Apply. Right? So if you see here, the configuration has changed. It has automatically added load balancer. You in my previous lecture, you had to go and create a load balancer, associate load balancers with the instances. All those circus you had to do. Here, Beanstack will do it for you. Just have to say, give me one load balancer. That's it. It'll create it, it'll add it, it'll configure it, everything it'll do itself. You don't have to do it. You're getting my point? You want load auto scaling, you just say, give me auto scaling. It'll only go and configure everything for you. You don't have to do it. Likewise, rolling out updates, right? The feature continues and continues and continues. Everything is available here. However you want to tailor, it is available here, right? It also has a monitoring capability, right? It does an application monitoring also, but not as sophisticated as you think, right? Basic HTTP request, right? Other requests it can see, but any other integrity of the application that you have that you want to explicitly monitor, as I told you before, you have to use a third-party tool such as Dynatrace from New Relic, or App Dynamics from Cisco, right? You can also get RDS from here. You don't have to go to an RDS screen. If you have a development team who is developing database and writing PL, SQL, or schemas, they can do it from here also. Making sense? Right? So it is very versatile, very flexible, right? There's a lot of things that you can do from here, right? You can manage your updates, you can create an alarm, right? It's basically a developer sweet spot. Typical what an operational guy would do, and for everything else a developer has to write an email or beg to an operational guy. Now developer can do it himself, whatever he wants, just have to fiddle around, apply it, and system will be built. Right? Now let's do a small automation use case here, right? Enough of theory and chit chat. I know what you guys are waiting for. You want hands-on and lab. So let's do hands-on and lab also. So I have my application here, right? This is not my code. Now if I go back to my GitHub, right, I've created a index.php page, and it's a sample project that I have created. And this project says working on the first DevOps class. This is the project that I'm gonna work on. Right, so this is the code that I have where I want automatically to be picked up and deployed onto the Beanstack server that I have here. So basically on an Excel sheet, the code that I have in my GitHub repository should be automatically picked up and should be automatically deployed here. And going forward, any changes that I do to my GitHub repository, it should auto sync inside AWS and do it automatically. That is what the use case I'm going to demonstrate today. Right, so to do this, I'll go to services, and under services there's a service called code pipeline. So I'm going to create, like you have oil pipeline, right? From Middle East to India, you have an oil pipeline where the oil is pumped inside the ocean. There's a pipeline where it's pushed into India, something like that. So this is a code pipeline. So that means a code that you have in GitHub repository will be pushed into AWS Beanstack services. Code pipeline. Right, I don't have anything. My pipeline is empty. And if you see, I have source, build, deploy. All the stages are available in the pipeline here. So this is the pipeline that will help you out to stitch all the stages together. Create a pipeline, and I'm going to say first project. Okay, so it's basically saying that, you know, if you want an existing role, I can select, or I can create a new role for you. So it's automatically creating a new role. It is also picking up a default location. It is creating an S3 bucket also to keep a code of it. That means the pipeline will also maintain its own code. Just in case if you lose it, you can pick it up this code from pipeline. Next, it is asking the source provider. In today's lecture, we will be using GitHub repository because I have my code in my GitHub repository. So I'm going to say GitHub. Right, it is asking me to connect. Since I've already logged into the GitHub, if I click on connect, it will auto log me in. But in your case, if it is asking you to log in, please enter the username and password for GitHub. See, I told you, you have successfully configured because I've already logged into GitHub here. Now it is asking me for my repository, and there are a lot of codes that are available here. Right, so in today's lecture, I'll be using sample PHP code. Let me come down. There you go. It's right here, and my branch is master. Right, now there are two options that are available. It's saying that, you know, GitHub webhook and AWS pipeline. So it's basically saying, hey, do you want to manually invoke a pipeline to do this migration of the code, or do you want GitHub to initiate this? I will check this to GitHub to initiate, so that as soon as if I do any changes on GitHub, GitHub will automatically initiate these changes via pipeline. Next, Build is optional. I have a very basic code, so I typically don't need a build in today's lecture, but in subsequent lecture I will show you. Skip build stage for now. Your pipeline will not include build stage, it's okay. Deployment. Right, today I'm doing a deployment on Beanstack, hence I'll be selecting Beanstack. And application name is first project. Okay, this is a Beanstack that I have created first project, therefore my pipeline is showing. Next, a quick summary on what it is, and let me create it. So my pipeline is ready. If you see here, my source stage is GitHub stage and my deployment stage is Beanstack stage. Right, that means it is looking for the code right now in my GitHub repository. It will pick up the code, it has already picked it up. Now it is going to my deployment stage here. So that means going back to the Excel sheet, it has picked up the code from here and it is pushing the code right here. And if you see the status, it says in progress now. It is doing its own thing here, taking longer than usual. Let me go and refresh here. So this was a default page. If I refresh it, see the page that I had in my GitHub repository is reflecting here. It says working on the first DevOps project, and then it is telling me the version also. Right, now let's go and do some tinkering here. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to tinker something in my GitHub repository, and you will see CI/CD in action, automated CI/CD in action. So I'll go to GitHub, I will edit something here, and I'm editing this outside AWS. So let me write developing PHP application for DevOps, something like this, right? And I will say version, I will say final, something like this. I'm writing it. So some code changes I have done. So basically what I'm doing is I am simulating what a developer would do. Come down here, I will say code change, something like this, and then I will say commit changes. So I've done these changes right now. Now if I go back to my pipeline, right, if you see here, the pipeline is automatically detected. If you see my source is refreshing and my GitHub has changed to in progress. So that means it has identified that I have done some changes to the code in the GitHub repository, and it is trying to sync or it's trying to bring that code here. Now it has picked it up. Now we are going to deployment stage where my deployment is happening. It is ready. Let's go back and investigate here. This was my first code that I deployed after refreshing. See, deploying PHP application. Sorry, developing a PHP application for DevOps. Isn't that smooth? Divi will change any code, and as soon as the code changes is done, he'll go to a restroom, wash his face and hand. By the time he comes back, he has his results. Making sense? Yes, 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 no, maybe. What is it, Mahesh? Why are you asking why? Right now, let's do automated. I'm sorry, not automated. Let's do manual. Right. So what happens is right now Divi wants to take advantage of process. Unnecessary one line he's changing and he's releasing the code. One line he's changing and releasing the code. For every one line, one dot hyphen he'll change and release the code. Just to show that his utilization is increasing. Just to show that he's doing 10 builds a day, 15 builds a day. See, whether he does 100 builds a day, at the end of the day, an outcome matters, a result matters. Right, a product development matters. 100 releases he does and not even one feature he builds, that means he's just wasting time and fooling everybody else. So we want to keep track of him, Divi, and we want to put Divi under approval process so that his manager can approve before his code is released. So the whole automated process, I will teach you how do you convert this to manual and approval stage now. To do this, this is my pipeline. So I want to add a stage in the pipeline. So I'm going to click on edit here in the pipeline. And under pipeline, it is asking me, do you want to add a stage between source and deploy or after deploy? So there are two options that are available. I want to add a stage between these two. So add a stage, and I'm going to say approval stage. Right, I've added the approval stage: source, approval, and deploy. Source, approval, and deploy, and I'll add this to a group here. I'll make it administrator and manual approval. And then you can select your SNS topic here so that it can send you a notification also. And then you can optionally put the GitHub URL here, whatever the code URL that you ever a comment you have. And then you click on save. And then save again. Right, so I've added an administrative approval here. Now let's see this in action. Let me go back and tinker this code again. Edit. Version 1.0. Version change. Right, this is done. Now let's see what happens in my pipeline. So before let me log into my ticketing tool because I've added SNS. So I'm expecting this to create a ticket also. Okay, so my ticket is ready. Now let me go back to pipeline. That has gone to the approval process. Now it is going to an approval process. So what this will do is this will create a ticket. Let me go back here. Let me refresh. Okay, approval needed, AWS code pipeline first project action for administrator. You can click on this ticket and you can see approval from administrator, right? It is asking, right, the renewal will expire in this time. It's basically telling approve or reject. I can click here and I can approve and reject from here. This is one way. Right, it took me to the same screen again. So I can click on review. Okay, now it is showing approve or reject. So if I say approve, you will know what will happen. If I approve, you know what will happen. I will say no need and I will reject it. So let's understand reject use case. Now if you see your pipeline is rejected, right? Now your developer will come back and say, sir, I'm sorry, sir. Right, I have really worked on this code. This code has to go. But if you see you have rejected my pipeline, right? What do you want me to do? Right? So after having a several discussions with your developer will convince you and say, hey, he's really put in hard work, right? This time instead of rejecting, you could have approved it, right? So how would you do it? What is an approval process? Once the code is rejected, how would you reapprove it? Class is so long that Zahrul also left. Okay. Nothing, you just have to click this button, retry. So when you click on retry, right, it'll reinitiate it for you. So when you click on retry, it'll reinitiate in a moment here. Let me refresh this page. Okay, so I got a review again. I can click on review and I can say kindly proceed and then approve. That's it. Now after approving, the code will go to a deployment stage and the version should change here. Right now it says final version. This version has to change now. It started. Let me go back and check. So the version will change. Let me refresh and there you go. Version 1.0. So you can use the automated process to do manual job approval stages you can put, right? Or you can also let the code fly like that, right? So clear, boys, is it clear for you? Do you know what exactly happened? Is it clear? Divi, Vriddhi, Zohrul, Gokul Krishnan. Okay, excellent. So we'll wind up a class for today, right? I want you to go do DevOps preparation and complete this lab and send me the screenshot. I want both automated and manual process to be covered in the training, right? And try with different use cases, try with Windows, right? Find if you could find codes for other technologies, play with it, explore more. Right, in tomorrow's lecture we will continue. In tomorrow's lecture I will show you how do you set up a production environment, right? And we will continue with our DevOps series for a couple of more classes, right? So with that said, if you have any questions I will take them now, otherwise I will see you guys tomorrow.